put the right inputs in there, create the right personas in your questions and in your prompts to make sure that you get quality output. And that is not something that can go away, right? That's something that as AI continues to dominate, there is a value proposition for people to pivot and to look at how can I get the most out of the technology.
Not everyone makes the news, but behind every growth-driving experience, product, and transformation are experts who shape the outcome. Welcome to Behind the Growth, a podcast for digital leaders and those aspiring to become one. Each episode features a candid conversation with a remarkable individual. Join us as we focus on their struggles, wins, and lessons learned you won't find anywhere else. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Growth. I'm your host, Imran Mian. Today we have the privilege of hosting a remarkable guest who possesses an exceptional depth of knowledge and experience in the realm of digital transformation, engagement, and adoption. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Robert Simon, an esteemed expert in the field. With a career dedicated to navigating the ever-evolving landscape of digital innovation, Robert has become a recognized authority in transforming organizations and empowering them to thrive in the digital age. His expertise lie not only in the technical aspects of digital transformation, but also in the crucial elements of engagement and adoption, understanding that technology alone is not enough to drive meaningful change. As a thought leader, Robert has successfully led numerous projects in the telecom industry, helping the teams harness the power of digital technologies to enhance their operations, customer experiences, and overall performance. Through his insightful strategies and practical approaches, he has empowered businesses to unlock new opportunities, streamline processes, and foster a culture of innovation. During our conversation today, we will delve into the intricacies of digital transformation, leveraging AI, exploring the vital role of engagement and adoption in driving sustainable change. Prepare to be inspired by Robert's wealth of wisdom as we uncover invaluable insights and practical strategies that can revolutionize the way we approach digital transformation in our own lives and organizations. Without further ado, let's dive into this enlightening discussion with our esteemed guest, Robert. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Imran.
So to get started, let's give our audience some background on yourself. Can you walk us through a little bit about your journey to date, Robert?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that I've been interested in digital technologies since the days of university at McGill, walking into a building, realizing that I can attach a file to this concept of an email and send it over. That to me was absolutely mind-boggling, and I was hooked in the mid-90s. So much so that I started to get engaged closely with the technology in university, writing an independent research project on marketing on the internet, one of the first ones done by the university. And then immediately after university, I knew where I was going to be focusing. And when I left, I started off in the aviation industry, helping the International Air Transport Association move their electronic file processing from what were at the time CDs, discs, and yes, even tapes, to an electronic data transfer mechanism where all the airlines around the world can work on their revenue accounting, their billing settlement plans, and then move it to an electronic medium, which, as you can imagine, was really transformative for them at the time. I then moved into telecommunications and have been here for about 20 years, spanning different roles, working originally in consumer-facing websites, and then eventually manifesting into self-service, where one of the key tasks, and one which continues up until today, is to get the telecom consumer base to adopt and to engage with digital properties. So that's really how my journey led. So it all starts with a passion, it all starts with a spark, and then I'm really grateful that it led me to where I am today.
Amazing. Your story almost takes me back to my university days and around the same time, not to date myself, but I remember sitting in the lab and when I took my first comp sci course, although I graduated with a business degree, but I took one course where they taught us about using browsers. At the time, there were text-based browsers, and I got to learn about how to chat with people on the other side of the planet, and it was mind-boggling. I couldn't comprehend, how this was possible. And then during those conversations, we used to chat about, there would come a day when people would be able to shop at home, like sitting in their offices or in their bedrooms, they'd be able to shop. And it was just so like, how would this be possible? So from there to today, so much has changed. In your view, what is the state of the nation with respect to digital today?
I think you mentioned in your introduction, we're really at a crossroads now when it comes to AI, right? If we look at kind of the history of digital, it started off as a, one-way conversation, Web 1.0, where you're interacting with, websites and it's a one-way communication. And then it evolved into Web 2.0, the entire social aspect, more of the interaction back and forth. And I think we're now at the cusp of that third one with AI, where now we're going to see, particularly through generative AI, to bring forth, more content. There's going to be more value, which we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of making sure that you can give and ask the right questions to get the most out of it. And I think that, we're continuing to see that next evolution, that next real tangible stage in terms of digital. So the level of interactivity continues to jump at each milestone, and we're really at a point now where it's really opening up to new horizons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no question that AI is revolutionizing every industry out there, including customer service and marketing. And organizations can really harness the power of AI to enhance digital adoption and engagement. Are there any specific use cases or examples where you think AI has proven to be particularly effective in driving, for example, customer engagement and accelerating the adoption of digital technologies?
I think we're starting to see it more and more with virtual assistants and chatbots that are AI driven. And we're also starting to see it in terms of the personalization engines that are available that are powered by AI to really get to know you at the level of one with your digital activities. So, if we look at chatbots, we've still got a ways to go to really capture the intention that our customers want, and that's really a theme you'll see me talk a little bit about today, which is AI in terms of business application is just as powerful as really interpreting the customer intention. What am I really looking for? Or what do I really need? What exactly is my sales need? So when you're engaging with a chatbot, usually you care about your use case. I have got a very specific problem. And, don't give me generic prompts like you having trouble with your bill or do you need to change your plan, but really more specific, more prescriptive in the sense of, okay, I got my bill, I spoke with someone and I'm supposed to get a fee waived. And I also did it in this branch. And so there's something very special about my use case that can't be served up by generic AI content. It really needs to understand my intention and then meet that intention. And I think right now you're seeing the beginning of that, and those models continue to evolve and to learn. And as businesses get to feed in that use case specific data. And I think we're not really where we need to be yet. But I think that as they feed in more to it, the more we'll be able to understand customer intention and give them the right resolution through an AI construct. And similarly, when going to websites, the personalization aspect, when you're in a logged in state, getting all of the data points that are available to you and really making sure that we're understanding what is that variable that makes you unique and gets you engaged at the time and bring that out there in the forefront.
I think you said it right. Personalization is absolutely critical in this whole thing. But before we talk about personalization, I want to just briefly touch upon how this whole phenomena started, when it comes to digitization or digital transformation. Organizations started looking at digital transformation as a cost-saving mechanism. streamlining their processes and bringing operational efficiencies. But now I think we're at a stage where organizations are looking at digital channels as a growth channel, right? Shifting, not only just focusing on operational efficiencies, but how do organizations leverage digital transformation and digital technologies to increase their revenues and customer retention and through the use of enhanced customer experience.
Yep. I think that that's a key point, Imran. That the shift from cost savings to growth is one that can be done if you really can capture what are those engagement triggers, right? In order to sell and in order to sell properly digitally and to really use it as a vehicle for growth, you need to ensure that you're capturing that customer need at the right time, in the right channel, in the right context. And all of those requirements need to be met in a really smart, intelligent way in order to achieve that growth potential. And if you go back a few years, you didn't necessarily have that capability, right? It was more of a customer coming in, telling you what they want, cost saving driver, and you have it. But now we're at the point where that growth potential can be fulfilled because we know what you are looking for. We know what's going to get you engaged, what's going to push you towards that sale, towards that product, towards that service at the right time. And I think that's why this is a watershed moment. The models will continue to evolve and to learn and to really be able to sell to you to the level of one, as opposed to here's your generic offering and your generic view. This is really something that Robert is interested in. This is something that will, at this time in his life cycle, is something he will want to interact with, that I can foresee his need. And I think that's where we moved from a cost savings model to one that is viable for growth.
Yeah, in my conversations with various, I guess, industry experts and customers in this space, I feel like people still haven't fully realized the value of digital as a growth channel. I feel like people are still struggling to shift entirely or to a certain extent or percentage of their business through these digital channels. What are your thoughts on that, Robert?
Well, I think that sometimes it could be a little daunting when you look at how am I going to, capture or take all of the needed data points that are necessary for me to create that state of growth, to create that state of, personalization that will allow me to grow. How do I capture it? How do I store it? How do I categorize it? How do I utilize it? How do I leverage it? So there's a lot of these questions that can come up that can seem a little daunting. But I think that the way to get past that barrier is, there are a lot of organizations and there are a lot of areas in various industries which will move ahead and will say, you know what, we've got some solutions for you to consolidate this data, to make it workable, to use it really as an input for your website, for your chatbot, for your app, or for whatever digital channel you have, to really benefit from that personalization. I mean, we're living in an environment now where I don't know what the latest number is in terms of how many terabytes of data we're creating every day about ourselves and our digital footprint. But there are things to exploit. There are things to be able to utilize there, right? And some organizations find that a very challenging task. Am I really capturing the right thing? How am I capturing it? How am I feeding it? So I think that overcoming or getting some clarity on that will help organizations better embrace and appreciate the opportunities that a strong personalized digital setup will give them.
Yeah. So when it comes to personalization, what strategies do you think, there's multiple channels in every organization, some call it omni-channel. How important, how critical is, for example, deep linking between different sets of data to create that personalized customer experience?
Yeah, so deep linking is a tactic that will allow you to, once you realize what that customer intention is or what that customer engagement trigger is, to bring them contextually to exactly the content that they're looking for. So when you detect, for example, that there is someone on your site who recently conveyed these characteristics or engaged with you a certain way, all right, I think I've gotten their intention. I think I know what they're going to do next, what their next best action is going to be. by utilizing deep links, you can bring them directly to that product or directly to that service that meets their needs without them having to look for it. And that's particularly powerful when we're looking at the app, because when you look at linking on web, that's one item where, you create a hyperlink and you bring them there. But when it's app, there's a little bit more, a little bit more of a challenge to get the right context, right? So you want to make sure that, no matter what the customer journey is, the moment that they have an intention and they show an intention, that you bring them directly to the right destination that's going to meet that need on the platform of choice. So if they're on a mobile and you detect, as an example, this customer needs widget X in size Y, once you determine that through your personalization engine, you deep link directly to that widget and you contextualize it to why this is something that we believe you need now, right? And then that combination for the end-to-end journey is what will create and trigger your conversion and create success.
There's no doubt getting the mix right, the technology, the business goals all aligned, and creating that personalized customer experience will determine the success of the project. But, the other day I was listening to another podcast where they talked about digital plus. When it comes to things like chatbots and virtual assistants, do you think part of the reason why it hasn't fully taken off because people still want that human feel and touch? As much as we want to be able to go to the app and, do things, but there's still some percentage of customers or, folks that still want to be able to talk to a live agent, for example, or go into a store. So do you think it will be like a hybrid model going forward where you have digital as well as in person, or?
Well, I think that's an interesting thing to delve into deeper, Imran, because what is the catalyst for wanting to talk to a human, right? And you really look at that, you can find some really specific use cases where, if I don't talk to a person, they're really not going to understand my intention. Or if I don't talk to a person, I'm not going to get the best deal because there's a negotiation that can be initiated, right? So I think that what you'll see is that whenever it's a price value customer intention for a product, having that fallback to a human is important, not because simply that the digital channel won't meet your need, but will it meet your need in the most effective and cost-effective way? Even though probably the reality is it will, there is still going to be that level of trust to say, if I talk to a person, social engineering, I'll be able to speak with them and either get a better price or make sure that they really understand my intention better than this machine. But if the task is more utilitarian, if the task is more administrative, if the task is one that doesn't involve negotiation, doesn't involve a back and forth to say, what, am I really getting the best price? I think that we're seeing more of people embracing the digital channel, because at that point it is, well, what, I'm just trying to pay my bill. There's nothing to negotiate with someone there unless I feel I'm going to make a mistake or I don't want the onus to be on me by making an error. So I want to be able to have someone handhold me. And what I've learned through digital adoption and working in this space for so long is that first handholding is really critical to say, okay, it's the first time I'm engaging you to this channel. This is an administrative task, so I know it's not one that has those, emotional connections that you need to it. Let me handhold you through it. Make sure you feel comfortable with it. And then once they feel comfortable, the level of them adopting digital, at least for utilitarian transactions, really magnifies and really becomes significant. But you're always going to have those emotional topics where if I'm speaking to a digital channel, no matter how sophisticated they are, no matter how well they captured my intention, the ability or that flexibility through social engineering to negotiate is where you're going to see the drop off, right? And I think that's where, no matter how good your model is, you'll always need to have a catch-all where you have a human behind the machine when they feel that way.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Figuring out that intention and then making sure that your systems are designed to make sure that intention is captured and accordingly the recommendations are being made. And then throughout the journey, if you need to pivot and take the customer to a live call, then that processes there too.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen as a challenge in this whole journey, digital transformation. Can we talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges and struggles that you've seen over the years?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
I think some of the challenges are one that many people will relate to who are working in digital transformation, particularly looking at certain demographics. The dynamic I spoke about earlier is just magnified when you're working there when it comes to a level of trust, when it comes to a level of change. There's just, the ability and really trying to segment your base very carefully is really key to say, look, let's identify our cohort of customers or cohort of the population who, no matter how much we make them aware, no matter how much we handhold him, no matter how much it's more of a convenience factor for them, the not being able to change is a reality that you need to be able to look at and identify within the segment with accuracy. I think that that's going to help because then you'll be able to say, all right, no matter how much I am an evangelist for digital transformation with this group, without some very strong incentive, I won't be able to move them forward. Identify them, put them in the right bucket, and then be able to address them in a unique way. I think identifying them is sometimes, it seems pretty obvious at first, but not a lot of organizations identify that cohort well. And then once you've identified them, all right, let's now look at and segmenting the base to see what is the reason why they're not engaging with digital, right? We have our most extreme, which we just identified. Is it an issue of awareness? Is it an issue of trust? But like I have awareness, but I don't have trust. Is it that I have awareness and I have trust, but I don't find it convenient or it'll meet my intention? And then as you continue to go up that challenge, you can up that ladder, you'll be able to come up with individual tactics for each of those cohorts to make sure that you maximize the potential. But usually you have to put them in the right categories, Imran, because then you can personalize your strategies accordingly. And you need to be able to accept that there's going to be some cohorts that simply will not change. But as long as you identify them and label them properly and give them another option in your suite of on-the-channel options, then I think you'll be in good shape.
Absolutely. I've seen you talk about prompt engineering quite a bit. As we implement chatbots, etc., how important, and as we adopt ChatGPT and things of that nature, how important would it be for folks to be able to learn how to give right prompts?
Yeah, so I really think that that's key. And Charles Kettering has been, someone who's had a great influence on me. And Charles Kettering's main mantra is, by knowing the problem, you have half of the solution. And if you take that concept and apply it to prompts, the same dynamic applies, which is I need to make sure that I input the right prompts, the right input, understand what my problem is so that I can customize those prompts accordingly to give me the most valuable output possible. And no matter how sophisticated the generative AI models become in the future, you're always going to have a need to be able to outline the problem statement clearly, put the right inputs in there, create the right personas in your questions and in your prompts to make sure that you get quality output. And that is not something that can go away, right? That's something that as AI continues to dominate, there is a value proposition for people to pivot and to look at how can I get the most out of the technology, right? And I think that there's still somewhat of a strange stigma with AI produced output, which I find really interesting, right? Is there less authenticity to the AI output than it would be if it was, came directly from a person. And that's really interesting for us to dig deeper into, because is it the output that's the issue, or is it the fact that you didn't put in the right inputs? So that's what creates the lack of authenticity in the results, right? More generic things being output that don't provide a lot of value. But if you really harmonize putting in the right inputs and knowing your problem and putting them in the right way, you can really get the most out of AI technologies.
Yeah, 100%. I know we're coming up on our time, but before we wrap things up, Robert, I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to people who want to, for example, pursue a career in digital transformation, knowing that this whole AI phenomena is unfolding right before our eyes?
Yeah, I would say remain curious. I know that's a trait that, we take for granted sometimes, but always remain curious and up to speed on the latest technologies. We're living in a time now where at your fingertips, if you want to learn about the latest technologies, there is nothing stopping you from moving ahead. Play around with those technologies, try to figure out your own use cases. And I would say that particularly at this juncture, with the focus being on AI, focus on understanding your problems like we just talked about before. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Don't underestimate the value that will bring to us in our new mode of operation, right? You'll need to have the right engineers behind the controls to be able to say, you know what, this is really what I'm trying to solve. I've got such a wide array and an arsenal of tools at my disposal. Put the right questions in, put the right inputs in, refine your skills of defining the right problem statement, and the world will be your oyster.
100%. I think understanding the problem statement is half the battle.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, 100%. So, as we wrap this insightful conversation, Robert, I think it is clear that leveraging AI for digital adoption and engagement holds an immense potential for organizations seeking to thrive in the digital era. We've gained valuable insights into the transformative power of AI and its ability to drive personalized experiences, enhance customer engagement, and streamline the adoption of digital technologies. Robert, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you spending this time with us. And it's been a pleasure having you on Behind the Growth.
And thank you so much for having me, Imran.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. And until next time, as Robert said, stay curious, embrace innovation, and continue to thrive in the digital age.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Growth. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. This podcast is brought to you by Mobile Live, a team of digital experts specializing in designing experiences, building products, and scaling technology. For more episodes of Behind the Growth, please visit mobilelive.ca/podcast.